Today on the Mr. Maple Show podcast, Matt and Tim count down the top 20 Japanese maples we hate.
Hey guys, welcome to the Mr. Maple Show. I'm Matt, and that's my brother Tim. You know, oftentimes, Tim and Matt, we get accused of being too positive. People say, man, they like everything. Those guys, they're just marketing gurus. They want to talk good about everything. Well, guess what, guys? Today we're talking about the top 20 Japanese maples that I hate.
That we
hate them.
That we hate.
The hater's bulb.
Hate's a strong word. And guys, this is our 20 trees that we hate. And, you know, it's hard to hate on Japanese maples because sometimes the worst Japanese maple is sometimes better than the best of something else. Other tree.
Right. Well, these trees that we're going to talk about, we'll put a little disclaimer in here. There's reasons why we dislike them. So they might not necessarily all be the worst. I might not hate this tree. In fact, a few of these I have in my garden that are on this list. But there's something about them that I don't like.
Yeah. And so we're going to go ahead and jump into number 20. And at the 20 trees... The top 20 trees that we hate. Our first one on the list, number 20, is Acer palmatum, Sir Happy.
I hate this one. I got a lot of hate in my heart for Sir Happy. It's a cool plant. Like, full disclosure, we offer it sometimes. I've sold some in person. I've had 20 of them myself. I still hate this plant. I have a love-hate relationship with this one. It's cool. It's one of the dwarfest maples you'll ever grow. It's finicky as all get out. The original one got killed because a dog bumped into it. So, I mean, there's that. The dog slightly bumped it.
Was like 3 feet.
Yeah, the dog slightly bumped it. It died. You know, it's hard to talk about why I hate some of these because there's a lot of cool qualities, too. This one, for whatever reason, can be pretty finicky. It tends to be very expensive because it's hard to graft. So, when you do offer it, you have to charge a little bit more of a premium for this one because it takes a long time to get one that's 3 inches tall. It's one of those plants that... You don't want to brag on it too much. The bragging rights are like, hey man, look at my Sir Happy. It's like 10 inches tall. It's like 8 inches wide. And then poof, it's dead.
And it typically does better in containers in the ground because you can control how much water it gets. And often people overwater this tree, especially if they put it in the ground. And so that's one thing that I often say with Sir Happy is make sure you don't overwater it. But it's pretty much like a extremely dwarf Shishigashira. I mean, it's super slow growing. It is perhaps the slowest growing Japanese maple. And when you're grafting this, I mean, you're literally grafting things much smaller than a toothpick, trying to make it take. And when it does take, it's very difficult to grow.
Sir Happy can make you Sir Sad real quick. Probably offend some people with this one. That's why we never did the haters ball before, but we're doing it today. You guys requested it. We're going to go through some trees. Now, there's a lot of things I like about these trees, too. I mean, obviously, I keep trying them. There's some reasons why I don't like each of these ones on this list. Coming in here at number 19, this one's going to make a lot of people mad. Fujinami Nishiki. Man, I have a love-hate relationship with this tree. It's one of the most colorful trees out there. It's one of the easiest trees to revert. I get more requests for this tree. Tama Nishiki, Fujinami Nishiki, Kagero, all those, they're amazing plants. Fujinami Nishiki is the one that made the list because, dang, if it don't just revert really, really easy. You have to prune this one every year for... for the color, for the variegation, not the shape. So you have to prune out any of the all red and leave the pink. It's one of the most dynamic pink on red variegated plants you'll ever see, but it requires so much maintenance that I kind of hate the plant. Everybody keeps asking me for it every year. I mean, I could sell these for 250 in 1 gallons all day.
We probably had to graft over 200 to maybe 400 different grafts off of variegated wood to get our very first crop of actually variegated Fujinami Nishiki.
Right.
And of that crop, you know, there might have been 6 out of all that many that were variegated that were grafted from variegated wood. And so it's very disappointing.
Nobody appreciates the work that goes into that. They just want it. Like, I need it now. And I'm like, do you understand this is going to revert in 2 years on you unless you maintain this properly? I've sold a few, but nobody really appreciates the struggle that goes into it.
Yeah, I mean, it takes a lot of work. And you got to realize when you have that many trees that revert, you've got that many reverted trees to deal with too on the other side.
Right. You're
And
regrafting these things. You're selling them as just a red upright. You're letting people know this isn't really a cultivar. This is the reverted form of Fujinami Nishiki. But
it is one of the most beautiful trees when it is variegated of any of the Japanese maples, because it's so striking with the dark red color with the pink red variegation. And that's why there's this love-hate relationship with Fujinami Nishiki.
all the way down at 19, because full disclosure, it's one of the prettiest trees I've ever seen. I mean, but I hate it. I hate that it's so beautiful, but everybody wants it constantly. But it requires so much extra work to get one right. It's so hard to put this one into production. You kind of have to summer graft it. You kind of have to label just the variegated wood. You have to continually maintain the stock plants. If you get any vigor, like if you're growing these at Buckholtz and you're getting any vigor of that Oregon push in them, forget it, right?
Yeah, people think rainbow reverts. That rainbow's actually able to be produced.
Rainbow's stable compared to this. I mean, rainbow is way more stable.
And so Fujinami Nishiki, a whole nother level of reversion prone. And, if it's getting any vigor at all, that's where you lose the variegation.
That's why I come down to 19. It's a love-hate relationship. Is it gorgeous? Absolutely gorgeous plant. I kind of cringe a little bit inside. It kind of hurts my heart every time somebody says, "When's it going to be ready?" Because I'm like, let me try 300 shots, to get those 6, and then those 6 are gonna. Somebody's gonna say, "Really? $75 for 1 gallon?"
It's not even worth it.
It's not even worth it. No, it's not even worth the time. Like it's
and we're gonna keep trying to produce it. I'm telling you.
But I've already tagged stock plants again. Like the way this one works, and with Tama Nishiki, Hitoda Nishiki, and Kagero, I'll just throw up all those into this one category. They're all highly unstable. I have a love-hate relationship with them. About every 5 years, I go back and find one still variegated, and I'm like, this is it. We'll restart it all from this. And then I cut it all. I have a Tama Nishiki in the ground. I keep chopping back. I went and found 3 of my best 7-gallon Fujinami Nishikis and trimmed them all back to allow the best variegation to come forth. And so inevitably we're grafting just that wood, and we will offer it again. But dang, I hate this plant.
Guys, coming at number 18, we've got Acer Shirisawanum 6910.
All right, so again, one I have in my garden. I have a beautiful specimen of this in my landscape. I hate the name. So different reason to hate on this one.
I think it's worse than Dr. Brown.
It is worse than Dr. Brown. 6910. What is that? It doesn't mean anything. It's just a complete code name. Sometimes you'll see this one as Holland 6910. But again, what does that mean?
And this one's only on the list because of the name. It's a beautiful Shirisawanum.
Gorgeous plant. I love any Shirisawanum. Shirisawanums are peak level maple collecting, in my opinion. Like, they're just awesome. I have to have a 6910 in my garden, even though it's the dumbest name.
It's horrible.
So I hate the name.
I mean, 6910 is a code name, not a cultivar name. It's been out in the trade for so frequently. Sometimes, like Matt said, under the name Holland 6910. But again, that doesn't mean anything.
And so don't hate the player, hate the game. Don't hate the maple, hate the name. This is awful.
And names can't really be renamed. That's something you can't really rename, especially when something's been out there like that.
It's been out there too long for that.
And I'm telling you, love the tree, hate the name. It's a beautiful tree. Beautiful tree. But the name is so bad, it's hard to sell 6910 because, guys, it's just a weird number. What does that mean to anything?
Right. It doesn't mean anything. It has no...
It doesn't have no
practical value to it.
There's no poetic Japanese name with it.
Right.
There's no regular name.
This was the 6,910th tree that was evaluated at this farm. This was the 6,910 seedling that came up from our seedling evaluation. It means literally nothing.
It's a classic Acer Shirisawanum. It's got a more typical Acer Shirisawanum leaf, and it's got some good fall color with it. Mm-hmm. The leaf is a little more elongated than some of the other.
I've had brilliant orange on this one. Like, again, I have a 7-footer in my garden of this that I chose to plant. So again, it's a situation where this one makes my hate list because I just think it's like the worst possible name for a great plant. It's like it had potential, and you destroyed its potential with this bad name.
So guys, coming to number 17, we got Acer palmatum Garnet Tower.
Yeah, another one that kind of makes the hate list here, but I kind of like the plant. So it's a weird one to be on the hate list. Originally Garnet Tower was named as such because people thought it was going to be a Serious style garnet. So, it wasn't from garnet, but it had that trait that reminded people of garnet in the spring color, the leaf shape, but they were shooting for a full-on Cereus. So I kind of hate the name Tower with this one because it doesn't live up to that. Now, it's an interesting plant. I don't think it's a bad plant. We've offered it before. We'll probably offer it again, but I hate the tower part of it.
Yeah, and that's the thing about it is it never has truly been a tree that even had a tower-like effect like English lace or firecracker. Both those trees are faster growing. This was, maybe some hormones that were unstable at the top of a garnet, and then someone grafted it and it was kind of upright for a little bit, but it's very much not a tower.
So uniquely enough, garnet tower kind of makes these more plume shapes. So it kind of makes more of an upright but then cascading habit to it. So it kind of plumes out weirdly. It's an interesting shape. It's not that it's an undesirable tree, but it certainly doesn't make a tower.
Yeah, I mean, the shape is different from garnet. It was found as a sport, and it doesn't have that tower shape, though. It's not the red Cereus, and that's what everybody was looking for, was a red Cereus, and you don't get that with garnet tower.
Yeah, I hate that this one's kind of confused in that regard. All right, coming in here at number 16, we've got Acer palmatum ground cover. Now, there's a specific thing I hate about this plant. I like the plant. I've had some in the ground. I hate how fragile it is.
Oh my goodness.
It's impossible to ship it.
It's impossible to ship it, so there's no way to really offer this mail order that frequently. But it's, there's no way it can be combined with anything else in the box.
We talked about Sir Happy getting taken out by a dog. This one might get taken out by a cat. It might get taken out by a bird. It might get taken out by a small little robin landing on it and just snapping everything about it.
And ground cover is a almost like weeping style Japanese maple that has a leaf very much like a Giryu or a Kamagata. And it is a very unique tree, but you can't put it anywhere close to where you're even going to be going, because if you brush up against this, branches just break off.
It's super fragile. I mean, it is probably one of the most fragile trees. It's hard to offer mail order because they're never going to open a box and get a box full of limbs in there. It's a cool plant. I mean, we've had it a few times here. I always let people know, it's not a bad plant. It's just incredibly breakable.
Yeah, I mean, the new growth is a little bit softer, but the second it turns to old wood, the limbs become very stiff and rigid, and they give no flexibility. And if anything brushes up against it, a rabbit bumps it, you're going to have
a light breeze,
half the tree break off. And, makes a beautiful container plant when you can put it where no one's going to bump into the container. Great container plant. As soon as you put this in the ground, it starts decreasing in size from the caterpillars that walked across it and a branch fell off.
If you step on this one, your ground will be covered with the branches. It is it's kind of a wimp in that regard. I mean, I like the plant. I've had one in the ground before. We've had one in the ground for many, many years.
So disappointing.
Yeah, and it can look pretty cool in the landscape, but it's just insanely fragile. I
mean, we've broken so many limbs on this by just slight bumps that any other Japanese maple wouldn't really even be affected. It's the most fragile Japanese maple, I think. I think it's more fragile on the branches than Sir Happy.
It's a boxer with a glass jaw. And Japanese maples are tough, right? This one takes one bump and it folds in half. So, again, you don't see us offer ground cover too much on MrMaple, simply because, man, sometimes when they're young 1 gallons, they can be a little more flexible, like Tim was saying, but gosh, as soon as it develops any older bark, it's just snappable.
Oh, it's such a slow grower too. You're going to have to grow it for 2 or 3 years before you offer a 1 gallon. And then when you offer that tree, it's going to break in shipping.
That's why I hate it. All right, coming in here at number 15, we're bringing all the hatred out of our hearts for number 15, Acer palmatum akane.
Now, the story with akane is that this tree was offered in Japan for over $1 million at a flower show because of its spring color was so amazing. That doesn't sound like a reason we'd hate it, does it?
I even hate that story. That sounds made up. I hate that.
I know, it's in Vertree's book.
Come on, man. I got better trees than that. Pay me $1 million. I'm kind of hating on that. That kind of makes me mad. I'm like, I got better trees than that.
The reason we hate it is mid-spring to late summer, the leaves start looking burnt, and it catches a fungus, and it can look burnt even in the shade, and it starts to catch a fungus that really makes this tree look very ugly late spring through the fall. And sometimes this fungus can deteriorate the leaves and damage the buds, and you can get some dieback on akane from it as well.
Here comes some of that positive marketing we get hated on for. I find that Kristen Starr does everything this does and more and isn't as finicky. So I find that there's a better replacement out there for it. Occasionally I'll regraft a Kane and offer them. I do tend to let people know it's a weaker plant. I think the first one I ever had,
I'll sell somebody a Kristen Star for $1 million.
Yeah, way better. Come on, give me $1 million for this one. It won't die on you immediately. You can buy it for $35-$40 right now on MrMaple most of the time when it lists. Awesome plant. Akane, though, I think the first one I ever planted, I went with like a 3-gallon into full sun in mom and dad's garden and just slowly watched it deteriorate away. Not sun tolerant. Again, it just tends to get so much powdery mildew and bacterial issues to it that it never fully develops into what it could be, which is an awesome plant. I mean, the colors are there to have a striking, amazing plant. Got to hate on it a little bit because it just never quite does it for me.
All right, guys, coming at number 14, we've got Agena, also known as Milky Way. This is a selection I tracked down because it was something I was just so excited about. It has a yellow-green variegation with a green border to it. But the reason I hate this tree is because it's not stable at all, and the reversion of this looks exactly like a Fujinami Nishiki style.
And that's what you commonly see in the trade as a result. People will sell, you don't see it much in the trade anymore. I'd say when we first started really collecting and beefing up Dad's collection, Tim and I took the business over from Dad around 2008. You still saw this one a little bit in 2008. We've offered it a few times on MrMaple. It's just difficult to grow. It's one of the coolest looking plants. When it has its green form, when it has that lime green on dark green, Milky Way can be one of the most striking plants. I mean, put it right up there with Fujinami Nishiki. It's beautiful. It's amazing. As soon as you get any vigor into this plant, the new growth shoots turn into oregano.
I mean, think almost like Anne Irene, but with lime green on dark green.
It would be such a fun pairing to that if it was stable.
And it's so unstable, but the unstable thing is beautiful. And because of that, most people think that is what Milky Way should be. They think that's what Agena should be. And it's like, no, that's the only reason I hate this tree. I loved what the leaves did. I thought this tree had a lot of potential whenever I first got it, but it's heavily unstable, and the reversion is pretty, but the reversion is nothing like what the original tree was, and that's what most people now think Milky Way is.
9 times out of 10, when I've seen this one offered to the United States, and you actually get a picture of what they're offering, it's the Fujinami Nishiki reversion of this. So most people just get it wrong. Super cool plant. Again, I love the colors. it's kind of why I hate it, right? I hate it because I like it so much, but it doesn't work.
And then I hate it because everyone else thinks that it should look like a Fujinami Nishiki style.
Right.
Because, that is a variegated plant. This is a variegated plant.
I hate seeing it wrong too.
Exactly. It's just like, no, that is not Milky Way. It's whatever Milky Way was found as a sport on. That's what that is.
All right, coming in here at number 13, we've got Acer palmatum Yubei. Another one you just never see correct. The late, great Dr. Murray, good buddy of ours, we took care of his collection for a little while, and he had a Yubei that he got from J.D. Vertrees. Maybe it was Frank Biles. He had one from one of those guys back in the day. And I got one little flake of variegation thing one year, and I got so excited because it was like a couple leaves started to show some variegation to what Yubei truly should do. And I hate, the only reason I really hate on this one is because just commonly accepted that it's not variegated.
Yeah, and Vertrees in his book says this is one of my introductions. This is a variegated form. It's heavily unstable. Y'all, this is more unstable than Fujinami Nishiki. And that's, you heard us talking about how unstable that selection is. I've seen a variegated leaf before. I've grafted it. We had a variegated 1 gallon before, and then it wasn't. And if you talk to the old timers, they say, oh, Yubei, it doesn't revert. You can just see the variegation in the fall sometimes. And it's like, come on, that's a cop-out. Like, it's not a variegated plant if you have to wait for it to turn
in the fall. When the leaf turns 2 different colors at once.
Like, that's a cop-out. Yeah. Like, that is total cop-out. And we've had a variegated Yubei before. So unstable, worse than Fujinami Nishiki.
We isolated a 1 gallon. It took so much work. We
were hoping that we could get something to the level of Rainbow, but
years of work go into a 1 gallon to try to stabilize it.
And I'm telling you, the tree itself, Yubei, not bad. As a green, as a red upright, but variegated, it's not. And everybody wants it to be variegated because Vertrees' book, that's why he selected it. It was a variegated red seedling.
And if you look at it for what it is when it's not variegated, it's a lot like a Hess Select, maybe like a little bit more rounded lobed.
maybe more
Fire Glow.
Yeah, I mean, maybe a little bit more on the colors too, of like a Yezo Nishiki, a little bit brighter.
It's in that category. Nothing wrong with it as a red upright. I mean, if you sell it as a red upright and what it is, but the promise of what it could be.
I mean, come on,
you gotta hate on this one.
Yeah, I mean, it was given the Yubei name because it was a variegated sport on a leaf.
It's like the top high school prospect basketball player, and they totally blow it in the NBA. Like they never make it. The potential was there. You thought they were like the next great thing, and they just never. You know, they just had an average 5-year career and washed out. You know, 2 points a game the last season, and you're like, man. You were supposed to be so amazing. What happened?
And people actually produce Yubei just as the red upright nowadays because they don't even realize that it is even supposed to be variegated. You know, in Yano's book for maples, they also had a cultivar he said he selected that was just a variegation on one leaf that never panned out. And so this is a common thing among people who are looking for, you know, a variegated selection.
It'd be like if you named our variegated Benikawa already.
Yeah, exactly.
There's one leaf.
You take a photo of it and you're like, there it is. But then, you know, I might hate on the one from Yano's book more if it was in the trade so much and around.
Nobody expects that one.
Yeah, no one expects that one to be around or expects it to be variegated. But guys, you know, Yubei, definitely one we hate, coming at number 13. Coming at number 12, a tree that we hate is a tree that we used to love, Acer Palmatum Winchester.
Yeah, it's a broom a friend of ours found in Winchester, Tennessee. Ray Jackson actually took us over to this broom. Beautiful plant, really cool appearance in the tree. Green broom, a lot of potential. One of the smallest, densest green brooms I ever saw. The problem was the more I produced this tree, the less durable it was. It was just a super wimp. It never shut down in the winter. And so every single winter that I tried to winter these, they just didn't make it.
Yeah, and when you find something like that, you get excited because it's a witch's broom. It's got this tight, dense habit, has a decent amount of color on it. So you're getting excited about this plant, and then it just doesn't pan out. And you're like, well, shoot. I mean, you want these trees to thrive, right, and you want this to be something cool.
It had a little more irregularity to the leaf, so you want it to be something that was slightly different than Tiny Tim or Matthew and add to the green witch's brooms. Man, this one just disappointed me. I kept chasing it, kept trying to get it there, and just never panned out to what it could be. I think the problem with that one is that it just couldn't shut down in the winter. So it wanted to stay active too much. So in the winter months, it'd still be trying to push growth no matter what you did. Even if you were so low in nitrogen, one of its deficiencies as a broom is that it just tried to stay active. And yeah, maybe if you're somewhere tropical, this one, I don't know. It never could figure out how to winter itself and to shut down, even if it was grown as slow as possible.
So guys, coming at number 11 on our top trees, top Japanese maples we hate, we've got Sango Nishiki.
Man, you know, this one's underrated for my hatred right here. I probably could have put this one higher up on my hate list. We grew this one. You know, it's like there's all those analogies, but this one ain't Sango and it ain't Nishiki. So it didn't have much coral bark and it didn't have much variegation. So I couldn't quite figure this one out. It's sold in Europe as Sango Nishiki, the variegated coral bark. And, you know, I got it from a great source, got it right. But dang, it was never really variegated and it was never really coral bark either.
Yeah, I mean, it's disappointing on all fronts, really. And you're like, well, the source is pretty accurate. And so where's the variegation and where's the coral bark? And when you see that and you see that, you know, it's got the leaf like the Sengokaku and you are disappointed in the bark and there's no variegation, I mean, it's like, why is this selected?
I'd imagine this one went to trade too early. Somebody probably put a name on it. I don't know who named it, so I'm not going to put them on blast here, but I would imagine that they had a slightly variegated seedling and it showed some stress and got some of that red bark in the bark early on. And then the more you grafted it, the more it just cleaned it up to like a healthy green understock looking tree. Because all this ever looked to me was like a green understock. So much potential, right? A variegated coral bark. That's like a made up holy grail plant. Sango Nishiki, I mean, like that be still my heart, right? Like that sounds amazing. So therefore I have to hate it that it didn't work out, that it didn't have the potential and it didn't live up to what it could be. I absolutely hate it.
All right, guys, coming in at number 10, we've got Acer Palmatum, Never Red.
Right. I like Ever Red. We sell Ever Red. The late great Mike Francis joked that one, you know, was never red for him in Atlanta. It's a pretty plant. It's a good plant, but it isn't ever red.
Yeah, I mean, you think a name like Ever Red, you'd have characteristics over something like Tamukiyama, and really you get something that doesn't hold its color as well as something like Garnet or an Abashidari. It greens up more during the summer, and it really disappoints on that Ever Red name. I mean, you get a customer out here in June, and
I'm showing Ever Red. It's green right now.
Asking for an Ever Red, and you go to them and show them it's green, and they're like, "That's not right," and you're like, "Well, it is."
Here's a Tamukiyama. It's red right now. Here's a Scarlet Princess. It's like a pink red right now. And here's a Never Red. It's a great plant. The name doesn't tell you what it does, because it does green up in the summer pretty regularly and pretty frequently. So it starts out a nice deep maroon. In many ways, it's similar to an Abashidari. It's just marketed wrong as Ever Red.
It's not an Ever Red even in Oregon.
Right, yeah. It's
like, come on, guys. Like, you got to come up with a better name for a tree than Ever Red when it's not really Ever Red.
Yeah, it's kind of comical. All right, so coming in here at number 9, we're into our top 10 hatred. And full disclosure, these are just our opinions. So, you can't sue us for it. We just have our own opinions. I hate when people rename trees. This one is one of my favorite trees.
Although
by the
6910 should have been renamed.
Yeah, it should have been. Why don't we just change that one to Extravaganza and fix the whole problem? Extravaganza. It's sold in Europe as Extravaganza. You know it in America as Lillian's Jewel. It should have the correct name.
We love Lillian's Jewel.
Yeah, I hate seeing a tree sold under the name Extravaganza. I won't talk too much about Lillian's Jewel because you know the tree. It's beautiful. I love it. It's a frequent seller. It's a top seller here at MrMaple.
Red on pink variegated. Pink on red variegated.
One of the most stable of that form, too. Sold in Europe, completely renamed and trademarked as Extravaganza. Often sold in America as Little Annie's Jewel, which is just lazy. I hate when people are that lazy with nomenclature. It probably is one of the most cringiest ones to see.
Wrong.
Yeah, it's like, just get it right. We helped popularize this tree from Jonathan Savlich. It's out there. It's named after his daughter, Lillian. It's not hard to get it correct. There's a ton of great information. It's just laziness, or you think there's more people by the name Little Annie. So you're trying to sell Little Annie because there's more Little Annies than there are Lillians.
Well, I think Extravaganza was just an attempt for someone from Europe to say they introduced a tree into Europe when they didn't find or introduce the tree, and they also did not introduce it into Europe because it was already in Europe under the name Lillian's Jewel.
I hate renames, so that gets on my list for hatred, even though I love the plant. I hate renames. I hate when people just kind of scammingly remarket plants that are out there. It's unethical. It's my opinion. These are just the expressed opinions of MrMaple, but I think it's unethical. Oh, Matt Nichols. But I think it's unethical to rename plants.
Yeah, and that's the thing that bothers me the most is because someone went through and, they didn't put a code name on this tree. They named it after their daughter. And they did all the work. They actually got this tree to be stable. And I'm telling you, when you find a variegated sport, it's not easy to stabilize that variegation.
It's actually from seed. So it was a variegated sport that then seeded. And that's why the variegation's locked in so heavily on this one. It's why it's superior is it's actually a variegated seedling of this style variegation, making it super rare.
And so what you're dealing with here is something that is awesome that someone found. They should get credit for it. They named it after their daughter, and then someone else is trying to claim credit for it and put a new name on it. And that bothers me beyond compare.
So I hate that. So coming in here at number 8, I'm going to let all that hate out at 8. All right, you ready to hate? This one I'm hating on the big box stores, guys. Back when I used to answer all the phones here at MrMaple, I would get a call all the time for Blood Good and Nana. Well, I saw it at my local such and such box store. Again, these are expressed opinions of MrMaple. Matt Nichols only.
I'm going to let you know there's no such thing as Blood Good Nana.
Right.
So this cultivar doesn't even exist, and that's the reason we hate it.
If it was going to exist, it'd be something like Rhode Island Red.
Yeah.
Right? Rhode Island Red is a dwarf Blood Good. True and true. And what happens sometimes at these big box stores, and again, this podcast is going to get me in trouble because some of my friends sell to them, but what happens sometimes are you have to print one label. I've sold to big box stores. You have to print one label sometimes, and then you have to sell a certain amount of those trees to those big box stores. So what happens, guys, they print one label and they put it on 15 different cultivars or 5 different cultivars. You can go to these box stores in the spring and look at differences of the tree with the same label on them. And Blood Good Nana is a perfect example of a made-up nomenclature to cover dwarf Bloodgood and put that on many different red uprights.
And a lot of them, sometimes they're just selling a Bloodgood seedling.
Right.
And there's the Bloodgood seedling. It's not even a grafted
There's
tree.
no locked in genetics there.
You go and look at it, and the seedlings are different from one to the other. And they're trying to act like this tree is going to have a certain spring color, a certain fall color, and a certain height. And it's a seedling. It's a genetic strand.
And they're claiming it's a dwarf Bloodgood, since Bloodgood's one of the most popular maples out there. The marketing goes to dwarf Bloodgood. It's a complete scam.
And they scammed the box store.
Yeah.
And just trying to scam their customers.
And the truth of the matter is, a lot of times you'll see this nomenclature put on lace leaves. I've seen just different plays on other words. So it's like red lace filigree. It's not slightly different. But then you go through there and it's like, well, that's a garnet, that's a crimson queen, that's a tamukiyama. And they put it on all those because they need to sell, 20,000 to a box store. So all these different cultivars got wrapped under one hanging tag label and then mass marketed. And my example for that is the Bloodgood Nana. And therefore I hate Bloodgood Nana.
All right, guys, coming at number 7. This is one that probably could have been back higher up on the list.
Right.
I probably don't hate this as much as I hate some of the other ones that we've talked about, but it came in at number 7 when we made our list. And that is Acer pseudosubuldianum, subspecies Tacosimense, cultivar, Morris columnar.
Yeah, no hate on the Morris Arboretum. They're probably trying to figure it out. Somebody probably grafted this from them. I don't even know really the origins of this. But the reason I don't like it is because the species is columnar.
Yeah.
So it's like, what's the point? You're literally just naming a trait of the species and saying like, this is a trait of the species. So it shouldn't be a cultivar if it's a defining characteristic of the species. So if you're growing Acer pseudosubuldianum subspecies Tacosimense, the tree is going to grow naturally, very narrow, and have a very defined set of traits. Now, there could be variation of that from seed, and maybe you could select the most columnar one. But from my experience, this one looks just like the species.
And to me, this is aggravating to me because the reason I hate this is they don't realize, whoever put the cultivar name on this, they don't realize what a cultivar is. Because a cultivar is a genetic difference that stood out, it's been evaluated, and stands out from what you see out there already. And I'm telling you, Tacosimense out there already is columnar. Mm-hmm. This would be like us going in and finding the chocolate maple, Acer willianense, and calling it chocolate drop simply because...
I knew that's the name you were going to say before you even said it.
Calling it chocolate drop simply because it has the... as a cultivar, simply because it has that chocolate color in the spring.
We're looking for one right now to call chocolate drop. We are. We're going to find a broom on that. We're going to find a genetic difference. It's going to be chocolate drop. Coming to the Heat Seeker series next week. Chocolate drop. It's happening.
Hey, we're going through seeds of William.
Just wait till chocolate drop drops on the 10 at 10.
But it's got to be something that stands out. And that's the problem with Morris columnar, is this tree doesn't stand out from the species. And so what we're dealing with here is a great tree, Acer pseudosubuldianum, Tacosimense, known as the oolong dew maple, that's already columnar. Guys, calling it Morris columnar, that's just turning that into a cultivar. It's just wrong.
Right. All right, coming in here at number 6, we've got Acer japonicum X Shuriken.
Now, this is a selection that was introduced by the same people who introduced Kiset Sudori. And, I think that is a very neat and legitimate selection. But the problem with Shuriken or Shuriken, however you pronounce this,
I think of it like Street Fighter back in the day, like Shuriken.
The problem with it, one, it's a finicky tree. I've grown it and it's been very finicky and hard to keep alive. That's one of the reasons you don't see it in the trade. But it neither looks palmatum or japonicum. Yeah,
it's weird. Almost looks like a subuldianum hybrid, maybe seedling or a seedling of that. Yeah, and I don't hate the plant per se. It's interesting enough. I like the idea of a japonicum, especially japonicum X. And, it kind of breaks the mold there. Sue Egriff says that you can't cross japonicums with palmatums. So maybe somebody could do some genetic testing on this one. It's an interesting plant. I think Shuriken may mean something like throwing star, so the leaf shape looks a little bit like that too.
But to me, the leaf shape doesn't look like a cultivar either.
Yeah.
It doesn't look like something that I would have selected. It would have been the seedlings that got grafted to or thrown away.
Right.
It doesn't have the cultivar. It just doesn't have that leaf to it or anything that's unique to it about it, other than the fact that they believe it's a Japonicum ex palmatum, which we've been told doesn't really happen.
Yeah, I've tried, I'll produce this one every now and then and try to find things I like about it, because it's hard for me to just completely give up on stuff sometimes, but I do find it to be a little too picky.
All right, guys, coming in at number 5 on the top Japanese maples that we hate. We got Isaiah Nishiki Kawasu.
The darn most pickiest plant of all time. I mean, dang it, if that one, we could have put a few of the ones that require rootstock on there. I
didn't think about that.
Think about that as another category.
Oh, man.
But outside of that, this is probably the pickiest of all maples. The correct form of Isaiah Nishiki Kawasu has to be grafted about every 2 to 3 years because the tree develops so much fissured pine bark that it kills itself. So what's the point?
Yeah, it ages so quickly that it just gets so much pine barking around it that it develops pine barking and it no longer, I guess, has the xylem flow to take up nutrients.
It seems like a chore. It's like, have I grafted that one in 2 years? I better go graft it so I don't lose that cultivar. So it's just like more work to do for this stupid cultivar.
And we've tried multiple sources of Isaiah Nishiki Kawasu, and they all do the same thing. And I've talked to people that I got them from, and they tell me, yeah, I have to graft that about every year to keep that cultivar. And I'm like, that's not worth it. I mean, there's so many great cultivars out there that have pine bark to them, like Hubble Super Cork, Arakawa, that are amazing. Why do I have to keep grafting Isaiah Nishiki Kawasu to try to keep the cultivar so it will stay alive?
Well, I haven't. I quit grafting it a couple years ago. I said, it's time to fend for yourself, son. You're out on your own. It's a hard life. It's time to sink or swim. We threw them in the deep end and it did not make it. So I don't think that one's in our 1,500 cultivars anymore. And I'm kind of glad. Like it was always like I had to like have it on my calendar. Like if you grafted it, I had to think about it too much. And therefore it made me hate it. It was like the, the squeaky nail gets the hammer or whatever. It's like the piece you always have to work on. You have to always be thinking about it.
And I like the fact that it pine barked up so much. I really like that.
I had pine bark in a 1 gallon. It was just dead in a 2.
All right, guys. Coming in at number 4 on the trees we hate the most. And this is a cool tree, but it's Acer palmatum Taylor.
Yeah, I mean, it's just finicky. There's so many great ones by Dick Vandermaat. I hate to pick this one because I actually know the person who named it after. Great family, one of my all-time mentors in maples. I think I love this plant for the color, and therefore I hate it that it's not durable. Taylor tends to just be a huge wimp. It's one of those plants, I've had a 6-footer before, and you don't brag on it too hard, right? Like I often tell people will tell me I'm wrong on this in maple groups. Oh no, Taylor's amazing. And they'll fight back with me on it. Like, show me somebody selling 10 gallons. Show me somebody selling 7 gallons.
We had some 6 gallons.
Show me someone selling 3 gallons.
We had some 6 gallons at the Buckholtz Nursery. And to me, it was something that I decided we needed to discontinue because we could get a tree in a cold frame type setting.
Right. It's the definition of a greenhouse plant.
In Oregon that looked good.
Definition of a greenhouse plant. It's going to always look great. It's like the beautiful woman. It's always alluring to you, but it's never going to work out. It's always going to break your heart.
And I'll tell you, I had plenty of opportunities to offer this in 1 gallons on MrMaple from people who were growing it, who were trying to get us to, be
good prices. You could have made a bunch of money on this plant. It's the truth.
But we didn't bring this in because it is such a finicky plant that it's going to die on you and you're going to have a bad experience with it. And it's very beautiful and you're going to want it again and it's going to die on you. And you're going to say, maybe I could try it again.
I went so far as to get to the source of the original plant to try to get material to make sure it wasn't some genetic flaw that occurred post-production in this one.
Yeah.
And I just can't crack the code on it, guys. It's not a durable plant. It's another one that has trouble shutting down in the winter. And so the tree stays too active, so you get disease into the plant typically in the winter months because, especially anywhere it's a little bit colder, it just tends to have issues. In hotter zones, it tends to just crash on you from the heat. In colder zones, it tends to not take the winter. So there's really no sweet spot for this one.
Did I mention it can revert?
Yeah, and it's hard. If it's hard to grow in a greenhouse in Oregon, it probably shouldn't be a commercial hit.
The reversion, oddly enough, will live. So if you get a solid green branch on it,
it's like the ugly sister. It's the ones you're wanting, you're not getting. The ones you're getting, you're not wanting. That always is expression. Well, Taylor's just going to keep breaking your heart. I hate to say it because I love everything about Dick Vandermaat's introductions, but it's got to be on my hated on list. Partially because I get asked for it once a month. When are you having Taylor back? guys, I don't produce a lot of Taylor, even though I could make a lot of money on it, and I'm doing you a favor.
Yeah, and the only time we've ever offered Taylor here was at an open house. I never brought any in. It accidentally got shipped to us.
Yeah, and I told people that bought it, I was like, it's beautiful. It's going to break your heart.
All right, guys, coming in number 3, we got Acer Palmatum Baby Lace. And that's another one that's going to break your heart.
Oh my gosh, don't brag on your baby lace too hard. It's like you find these new collectors that are just getting into it, which is a lot of people. A lot of people are new to maples. And I've been doing this my whole life. I'm 43, just turned 43 last week. I've been doing this in some capacity my whole life. Tim and I were trying to grow baby lace in the 90s. Like we're not new to this, and we're like, man, there's just no way to crack this code. Baby lace, this form of baby lace is the most commonly referred to as baby lace, is a broom off ornatum. It's absolutely amazing. Has an upright, dense habit to it.
Great colors. Amazing
color changes. It's so enticing. It's so enticing. I get the appeal every year. They're like, man, I got to try it, bro. Like I remember Brian Rule telling me, I'm going to do it anyway. And I'm like, it's going to break your heart.
And greenhouse grown baby lace can create a beautiful tree if they're not overwatered. And you can have a beautiful, and I've seen a beautiful 10-gallon baby lace, but the second you get it out of that greenhouse, the second you put it out in your yard in a container or in the ground, you start to have issues with baby lace. And at some point, the witch's broom part of baby lace basically can't take up enough nutrients during, the winter or the summer or the spring, and it's not getting enough nutrients to the rest of part of the tree, and it crashes. And that could be from cold. It could be from cold damage. That could be from simply, creating that bulge at the graft.
There's always people that rush to defend it, though. There's always that one guy's like, I'm in Seattle and I've had one in the ground for 10 years and you're completely wrong on both these. And the truth of the matter is, sometimes you can get a sweet spot. You can keep it going. But is it commercially going to work for most people? Is it going to go in Columbia, South Carolina? Is it going to go in Dallas, Texas? Is it even going to go in Springfield, Illinois? And it's not.
And I will tell you, go back and check out that guy's garden in 3 years.
Right.
He probably isn't bragging on the same in 3 years. He's been lucky.
Yeah, he's
been blessed.
It's literally just a matter of time with some of these. And again, different reasons why we like some of these plants differently. So baby lace, though, just one of the absolute pickiest, most finicky plants you'll ever grow for a maple. It's really a hardy annual is the hard part. Like you can grow this one and enjoy it. Get you a real pretty nice one. Hey, if you really want to enjoy it, buy the biggest one you can. You could say, look how big this one was. And then you can take a lot of pictures of it that year because that's it.
All right, guys. Coming in at number 2 on the trees we hate.
Again, these are just the opinions of Matt and Tim. The opinions of Matt and Tim do not reflect. These are just our opinions on plants.
The tree we hate at number 2, Velvet Viking.
Yeah, we've talked about a lot of reasons why we hate on some plants. This one I see at local garden centers sometimes. It's a trademark plant that was found in a garden in Minnesota.
Guys, they didn't find this thing in the wild. They didn't find this as a seedling. They found this in a garden already as a grafted cultivar.
So it's probably Crimson Queen, Garnet, an Abashadari that was growing there and made it a few good winters. And you can't trademark a plant that you found growing in another garden, man. You thought Christopher Columbus was bad because he discovered America. There were people already there. How about you name a plant and it's in somebody's garden already?
It was already grafted. It was already a variety that was in the trade. I mean, if you watch their YouTube video explaining this, it just makes you laugh and cringe at the same time because it's like, that's not how you name a tree. And just because this tree, they're like, this happened in this zone and it's growing so well in this zone and we're so excited. So we're trademarking this tree, but it's going to need some protection and be planted up next to a house like all Japanese maples do in this zone.
And there's no disclaimer that it shares any pseudosubuldianum genetics.
Nothing.
Anything that makes it superior to regular palmatum. And it was pre-existing in the trade. So I don't like when trees are remarketed just for genetics. I don't
Have we
like
heard
that.
about microclimates? Let's just talk about that for a split second. Microclimates happen in colder zones. A lot of microclimates can be found close to your house. And that's where this tree was found, close to a house in a slightly colder zone. And they were really excited because it was growing in a microclimate of a tree that was already thrives. And they say, for this tree to thrive in this zone, you need to plant it in a microclimate.
Hey, these are just my opinions. You can't sue me for them. But my opinion on this tree is it stinks, and it's just renamed something from someone's garden. If it was from seed, if it has truly new genetics, I'd have a different opinion. It feels like a cash grab on something that was already out there. You saw it in a garden existing, and then you just grabbed it. Last year I saw one at a local garden center. It was about half dead in zone 6 here. I was like, oh man, not too cold tolerance. Anyway, all right, guys, coming in at number 1, our most hated Japanese maple. You guys asked for Matt and Tim are too positive, right? We're letting you behind the curtain today. We're letting that hate out a little bit. We're showing you some trees that we kind of hate for whatever reason. Coming in at number 1. I hate the way it even sounds. I hate saying this one. Fujinami. Fujinami?
I don't know. It's got a German name.
Fjelheim.
Y'all, this is a coral bark selection that's extremely finicky and it's dwarf. It's likely a witch's broom, but it's a finicky witch's broom like Winchester that we just discontinued.
Right. It's a coral bark, so you do get that short and center note on it. It's a true broom on a coral bark. I think I hate this one for how much everybody tells me that theirs is awesome, and then they lose it. So it's like somebody will buy like a greenhouse grown like 7-gallon of this. And again, it can grow in a greenhouse and look pretty decent for a little while. So somebody will show it and they'll be like, well, you're completely wrong, bro. I've got like a 4-footer, and they'll be, it's just like Taylor, Baby Lace. They'll be like, well, you're just wrong. This one's good. It's good. She's good to me. I know she cheated on everybody in the past, but she's good to me. No, Fujinami is going to break your heart, bro. It always dies. It doesn't shut down the winter. It's a wimp in the heat. It's a wimp in the cold.
We struggle with it here in Western North Carolina in our cold frames.
I've given up on it.
And I've given up on this tree. And the reason I've given up on it is because there is Akakawa Hime. There's Little Sango. There's Cupid. There's Winter Flame that are all dwarf coral bark selections that are not finicky. They're easy to grow. They have most of the characteristics you're looking for with Fujinami, and they survive it. They do well. They give you the good coral bark and a dense dwarf habit.
Cue the Akon. She's only going to break your heart. It's only going to break your heart. I think the reason some of these get on my nerves though is the like the gusto that people have when they're like, you're wrong. Like this one's really good. I've got one. I promise you I have one and it's amazing.
And you're just wrong about this.
I've only had it 1 year. It's still in the pot. I haven't wintered it yet. It's been since February. Look how amazing it is.
Or they've had it for 5 years and they're like, yeah, I've got the best one ever. And they may have the best one ever. It survived 5 years. I'm impressed.
Right.
But I'm telling you, it's going to die and it's going to be really sad. And you're out there and instead of having the red bark, you just walk out and the bark is black. And I think that is one of the things that makes it more depressing with this one too, is because you're looking for that bright, vibrant bark. And then you're so disappointed when you go out there during the winter and you just run into a black dead tree.
I think people think I'm like almost picking on them at times because I'll have people send me their Taylor and they'll say, oh, it's so amazing. Look at this. And I had a guy send me his Fujinami and he's like, it's so amazing. Look at this. And then a couple months later, he's like, hey, what do you think's wrong with it? It's got all this black at the base. And I was like, I think what's wrong is that's a Fujinami. I think it's always going to die. Like it's a hardy annual. That's what it does.
And we're not the only people who've hated it before on a Japanese maple cultivar. If you read Vertree's book, he goes in and throws some shade at Voluble or Volubile. I mean, the horrible name. It's just a green upright that has red fall color. And it's not that bad of a tree. Yeah. He threw some shade at that. To me, these on our top 20 list.
Well, there's reasons why we hate these. Like some of these are great plants. Like I talked to you about Lillian's Jewels, one of my favorite plants of all time. The extra name gets on here because I hate that about it. 6910, absolutely peak. I love Shirisawanums. Hate the name. So there's reasons why we hated these differently. Some because they're more finicky or picky. Some because the name renames. Some because they're just very difficult to grow. And for some of these, that's why we don't offer them. So a lot of people will say, like, why haven't you offered this? I don't feel ethical offering you a plant that I know isn't going to make it.
And so this is our least marketable podcast. And maybe that's how we should title this. Because this is our top 20 Japanese maples that we hate.
Guys, I hope you enjoyed this. It was kind of a fun topic. Again, these are just our opinions. So feel free to take these for what they're worth. For reasons we don't like some of these. Some absolutely gorgeous plants on this list too is the honest answer, but there's some reason why I just don't like them.
Yep. So make sure you subscribe to us on the Mr. Maple Show on YouTube. Check us out on your favorite podcast platform. Give us a subscribe there as well. And y'all, we'd really appreciate it if you shop with us on MrMaple.com. You're likely not going to find one of these top 20 that we hate on that on MrMaple.com.
We've offered 6910.
But many of these you won't find on MrMaple.com. So unfortunately, if you're after some of these, you're probably not finding them here.
We've offered Ever Red. We just say, hey, it's never red in the summer.
Exactly.
I mean, some of these will come back. Sango Nishiki, you ain't finding that one with us anymore.
Lily and Jewel you're going to find. You're just not going to find us calling it extravaganza.
Right. There is a chance I bring back Fujinami Nishiki. Every so many years, I do try.
Anyways, y'all, thanks for jumping in today's podcast. Take care.
God bless.
And have a great day.